What are types of studies included in Unit 4? Why is it important to choose the right study? So take notes your way. All you need to know is that there's 4 different types of studies that we are going to look at right now. You can either outline things, so we're going to write a few things about each. So if you want to outline A, B, C, D, 4 types of studies that way. Types of studies, you can do a web or a map. I'm sure you're familiar with that. You could do quadrants if your brain finds that appealing. You can even get crazy, do a doodle or graphic. You can do like a tree with 4 branches or something like that as well. So decide how you're going to take notes. Why is it important to choose the right study? Unit 4 is basically about making sure that you embark on a research endeavor or on a study endeavor or a data collection endeavor responsibly. Okay, so Unit 4 is really going to be what are the best practices for experimental design, and in order to start thinking about which study that we can do, then we're going to have to figure out what the 4 studies are. So we need to be able to describe them, and then why is it important to choose the right study? We have to delve into that deeper, because different studies will get you different results or data. So if you pick the wrong type of study, then you're not going to be able to draw conclusions about the data because you're mismatching the study and the data. Okay, so it's important to make the right choice. If you conduct the wrong study, garbage in, then your conclusions have no point. Garbage out. So you want to make sure that everything you're putting into your research study or your data collection up front are best practices. So everything that you conclude at the end, whether there's a correlation, maybe there's causation, maybe you are looking at relationships between certain categories of variables, you have to make sure that right up front you're making the right decisions so that the summary, the display, the analysis portion is easier for you when you're at that point. So you want to make sure that you're considering what type of data you're collecting, how many variables are you studying, what are the conditions and ethical limitations, are there any lurking variables that you could think of that you could try to control. So we're going to get into all that, but the 4 types of studies, here we go. The first one is a simulation, which is used when conditions are dangerous or unethical. Can use randomized numbers, database, computer program. This involves maybe using a test dummy or a wind tunnel, something like that. A survey is collecting one variable or multiple qualitative variables, asks questions of the sample. This is something that you have to be careful of, because if you ask certain people a survey, your conclusions apply only to those people who you asked. So that's something we're going to really delve into as well. Examples would just be Instagram polls, email surveys, questionnaires. You get them on Schoology all the time, or maybe from your teachers and things like that. An observational study involves more than one variable. This is where you're going to examine the correlation between existing variables, but you're not going to manipulate one. You're not going to change one. It's very important to remember that an observational study is not an experiment. You're not looking for cause and effect. So if you just want to find a link between something, so example, finding a link between sleeping habits and eating habits through observation, you are going to look at multiple variables, usually 2. You're not going to change one, and then you're just going to examine the behavior of both of the variables at the same time to see if there's a correlation possible. An experimental study is the other study that involves more than one variable. So you have observational and experimental are more than one variable. When you have an experimental study, you change the X variable and then you measure the effects on the Y variable. As soon as you use the word effect, or if you think about the effects on something, then you're looking for causation. Okay, so that's a key word. Example, changing the temperature of an incubator and measuring how bacteria grows. That's classic science experiment. That is where you are manipulating one variable. You are keeping some variables the same, and then you perform your experiment.